Good morning, and welcome to your Hacker News Daily Podcast for Monday, August 4th, 2025. I'm your host, and today we've got an absolutely fascinating mix of stories that really capture the tensions and contradictions of our modern tech world. We reviewed 30 stories from Hacker News today, and the four that rose to the top, well, they paint quite a picture of where we are as an industry and as a society. We've got corporate giants playing word games while wielding unprecedented power, AI systems replacing human interaction in the most personal of moments, and right in the middle of all this corporate dysfunction, one beautiful reminder of why we got into tech in the first place. So, buckle up. We're diving into controversies around web scraping ethics, the dehumanization of job hunting, payment processors becoming content police, and yes, a wooden pixel display that takes 6 seconds to change a single pixel. Trust me, it all connects in ways you might not expect. Let's start with a story that's got the tech community completely divided. All right, moving on to something that's really stirring up controversy in the tech community. Our next story is about Perplexity allegedly using stealth, undeclared crawlers to evade no-crawl directives. And wow, with nearly 1,300 points and over 700 comments on Hacker News, this one has definitely struck a nerve. So here's what's going down. Cloudflare has come out with some pretty serious accusations against Perplexity, the AI-powered search engine. They're claiming that Perplexity is essentially playing hide-and-seek with website owners by using undeclared crawlers that don't identify themselves properly, allowing them to bypass robots.txt files. You know, those little text files that tell crawlers, hey, please don't index this part of my site. Now, this is where it gets really interesting because the community is completely split on this. And I mean deeply divided. On one side, you've got folks saying this is a clear violation of web etiquette, maybe even unethical. But on the other side, and this surprised me, there's a significant number of people defending Perplexity's approach. The defenders are making this fascinating argument. They're saying, look, when a user specifically asks an AI assistant to fetch information from a web page, that's fundamentally different from a bot systematically crawling the entire internet. It's more like, imagine you're using a browser with an ad blocker, right? The browser is fetching content on your behalf, modifying it, and presenting it to you differently than the website intended. Is that really so different from what Perplexity is doing? One commenter made this point that really stuck with me. They said robots.txt was never meant to block user-initiated requests. It was designed to prevent automated, recursive crawling that could overwhelm servers. If I ask Perplexity to summarize an article for me, that's me, a human, directing it to fetch specific content. Should that really be treated the same as a bot crawling millions of pages automatically? But here's where it gets even more complicated. Cloudflare's role in all of this is raising some eyebrows. They're not just reporting on this, they're actively policing it from their position as a major internet infrastructure provider. Several commenters pointed out that this feels a bit like, imagine if your internet service provider started deciding which websites could access which content. There's something uncomfortable about Cloudflare positioning themselves as the internet police, especially when they have their own competing interests in the AI and web services space. The technical folks in the comments are having a field day with this too. They're pointing out that robots.txt is really just a gentleman's agreement. It's a social convention, not a technical barrier. It's like putting up a "please keep off the grass" sign. Sure, it's polite to respect it, but there's nothing actually stopping you from walking on the grass. And in the digital world, where the stakes involve access to information and the future of how we interact with the web, well, some people are arguing that maybe these conventions need to be rethought. What really caught my attention was this one user who straight up said they prefer Perplexity precisely because it ignores these restrictions. Their argument? These no-crawl directives are increasingly being used not to protect server resources or user privacy, but to gatekeep information and maintain control over data that's already publicly accessible. They see Perplexity's approach as democratizing access to information, rather than violating some sacred trust. And you know what? This whole debate is really about something much bigger than just Perplexity or robots.txt. We're watching the collision of old web conventions with new AI capabilities, and nobody really knows what the rules should be anymore. The web was built on certain assumptions about how information would be accessed and shared, and AI assistants are completely upending those assumptions. The testing methodology that Cloudflare used is also being questioned. They apparently set up honeypot servers and watched what happened, but some commenters are saying the tests might not accurately represent how Perplexity actually operates in production. There's also this interesting technical detail where Perplexity might be using different systems for different types of requests, one for user-initiated fetches and another for building their search index, which would completely change the ethical calculus here. I think what makes this so contentious is that there's no clear villain or hero. Website owners have legitimate concerns about their content being scraped without permission. Users want unfettered access to information they can already see in their browsers. Perplexity's trying to build a useful product in a landscape where the rules are unclear. And Cloudflare, well, they're trying to enforce norms that maybe aren't as universal as they thought. This is definitely one of those stories where the implications go way beyond the immediate controversy. We're essentially watching the web's social contract being renegotiated in real time, and the outcome is going to affect how all of us access and interact with information online. Speaking of AI replacing human interaction and the dehumanization of digital experiences, this next story takes that theme to an even more personal level. Next up, let's talk about a story that's got everyone fired up. Job seekers are dodging AI interviewers. And honestly, after reading through the 877 comments on Hacker News, I totally get why this struck such a nerve. So picture this. You're unemployed, you've been grinding through the job search for months, you finally land an interview, you join the Zoom call all prepared and ready to make that human connection, and boom. You're staring at a faceless AI bot that's about to conduct your entire interview. No human in sight, just you talking to a machine that's recording your every word for some algorithm to analyze later. And here's what's wild. People are straight up refusing to do these interviews, even while unemployed. Think about that for a second. The job market's tough right now. People need work, need income, and yet they're drawing a line in the sand and saying, nope, I'm not doing this. That tells you something profound about how dehumanizing this practice feels. The companies defending this are saying, look, we get thousands of applications for every position. There's literally no other way to handle the volume. And I get it, I really do. But here's where it gets interesting. The community on Hacker News is pointing out this fundamental asymmetry that's emerged. Used to be, when you interviewed somewhere, both sides invested time. You prepared, they prepared. There was this mutual respect thing happening. Now, you're pouring your heart out to a robot, while the company invests literally zero human time in evaluating you as a person. One commenter made this brilliant point. They said if a company can't be bothered to have a human talk to you for even 15 minutes, what does that say about how they'll treat you as an employee? And that's hitting at something deeper here, right? It's not just about the interview process. It's about what this signals about company culture, about values, about whether they see employees as humans or just resources to be processed. The CEO of this company, Filtered, Adam Jackson, he's quoted in the article saying, "These AI interviews are working great because candidates aren't wholesale rejecting them." But the comment section absolutely tears this apart. People are saying, yeah, we're not rejecting them because we're desperate, not because we think it's okay. It's economic coercion, basically. And the stories people are sharing, oh man. There's one person talking about doing an AI interview where the bot literally couldn't understand their accent. Another person said they had technical issues, tried to explain to the AI that their camera wasn't working, and the bot just kept plowing through questions like nothing was wrong. Can you imagine? You're trying to troubleshoot tech problems with a bot that doesn't even recognize you're having problems. What really gets me is this idea that keeps coming up in the discussion about time value. These companies are essentially saying, our time is too valuable to spend on you, but your time is worthless. One commenter calculated that if a company gets 1,000 applications and each AI interview takes 30 minutes, that's 500 hours of collective human time being spent talking to machines, while the company spends 0 hours. That's 500 hours of human effort, anxiety, preparation, just vanishing into the void. Some folks are getting creative with their resistance, though. There's serious discussion about building bots to interview with other bots, just full automation on both sides. Let the machines talk to each other while humans go do something meaningful with their time. Others are suggesting coordinated boycotts, naming and shaming companies that do this. But here's the thing that really stands out to me from all these comments. This isn't just about efficiency or scale. This is about a fundamental shift in how companies view the employer-employee relationship. And people are recognizing that accepting this sets a precedent. If we normalize talking to robots for job interviews, what's next? AI performance reviews? AI firing you? Where does it end? The irony here is thick, too. Tech companies especially love to talk about innovation, disruption, thinking differently. But then they can't figure out a better way to hire than having robots interview humans? Come on. If you've got thousands of applicants, maybe the problem isn't that you need AI interviewers. Maybe the problem is your job posting is too vague, your requirements are unrealistic, or you're not being clear about what you actually need. And you know what really resonates from these comments? People aren't just angry about the practice itself. They're angry about what it represents. This growing sense that workers are becoming increasingly disposable, increasingly dehumanized, increasingly just another data point in someone's spreadsheet. The AI interview isn't the disease. It's a symptom of something much bigger going wrong in how we think about work and human value. The resistance to this, even from unemployed people who desperately need jobs, that's actually kind of inspiring. It's people saying there are some indignities we won't accept, some lines we won't cross, even when we're vulnerable. And maybe, just maybe, if enough people refuse to play this game, companies will have to remember that hiring is supposed to be about finding humans to work with other humans, not about processing applications like a factory line. Transition to story 3. Between AI systems deciding who gets hired and the web scraping controversies, you might be wondering, who's really in control of the digital world? Well, our next story might surprise you. It turns out it might just be credit card companies. All right, now we're diving into something that's got the tech community pretty fired up. Mastercard deflects blame for NSFW games being taken down. This one's sitting at 591 points with a whopping 580 comments. And honestly, once you hear what's going on here, you'll understand why people are so heated about it. So here's what happened. 2 weeks ago, Valve starts pulling NSFW games from Steam, and they're pretty upfront about it. They literally say it's because of pressure from credit card companies. Then last week, itch.io does the same thing, also pointing the finger at payment processors. But here's where it gets interesting. Mastercard comes out with this statement saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, "Wasn't us. We allow all lawful purchases. We've never evaluated any games or required any restrictions." And you can almost hear the collective, "Are you serious right now?" from the internet. Because come on, both platforms independently said payment processors made them do it, and there are only 2 major players in this space, Visa and Mastercard. It's like when your mom finds a broken vase and both kids are pointing at each other saying, "I didn't do it." What's really fascinating here is this weird contradictory dance Mastercard is doing. On one hand, they're saying they allow all lawful purchases, and these games are completely legal in the US, by the way. But then buried in their terms of service is this Rule 5.12.7 that basically says they can block any transaction at their sole discretion if they think it might cause brand damage. So which is it? Do you allow all legal purchases or don't you? The Hacker News discussion on this is absolutely going off. And there's this really interesting thread about how we've essentially handed over content moderation powers to payment processors. Like, think about that for a second. We've got these two companies, Visa and Mastercard, who together control something like 90% of credit card transactions, and they're effectively deciding what legal content adults can and can't purchase online. Not the government, not elected officials, not even the platforms themselves, really, but the companies that process your credit card payments. One commenter made this great point about how this is actually worse than government censorship in some ways, because at least with government regulation, there's theoretically some democratic process, some accountability. But with Mastercard, they can just wake up one day and decide, you know what, we don't like this perfectly legal content anymore, and boom, it's effectively banned from mainstream commerce. Now, there was this interesting contrarian take from a user named Fendrinad, N2, who argued that maybe we're blaming the wrong people here. They suggested it's not really Mastercard making these decisions, but they're investors who want everything to be, as they put it, Disneyized, this sanitized, family-friendly version of the internet where nothing controversial exists. And, I mean, there might be something to that, but it doesn't really change the fundamental problem, does it? What really gets me about this whole situation is the gaslighting aspect of it. These platforms are explicitly saying payment processors made us remove this content. And Mastercard's response is, essentially, no, we didn't. We would never. Also, here's our rule that says we can totally do that if we want to. It's this weird corporate doublespeak that just insults everyone's intelligence. And the proposed solutions in the comments are all over the map. Some people are calling for regulation, treat payment processors like utilities, make it illegal for them to refuse legal transactions. Others are suggesting workarounds like cryptocurrency or cash payments, though good luck implementing a cash payment system for digital game downloads, right? But here's the thing that really stands out to me from this discussion. We're watching in real time as these payment processors become more powerful than actual governments when it comes to controlling what content can exist online. They don't need to pass laws or have debates or deal with pesky things like constitutional rights. They just update their terms of service, and suddenly legal businesses are scrambling to comply or lose their ability to accept payments entirely. The frustration in those 580 comments is palpable, and honestly, it's justified. We're talking about a situation where two companies have essentially appointed themselves as the moral arbiters of the internet, deciding what legal content between consenting adults is acceptable. And then when called out on it, they're like, who, us? We would never. While literally holding the smoking gun of their own terms of service that says they absolutely can and will do exactly that. It's this perfect storm of corporate power, plausible deniability, and the reality that most businesses simply can't survive without being able to process credit card payments. And until something changes, whether that's regulation, viable alternatives, or just public pressure, we're stuck in this weird situation where your ability to purchase legal content online depends on whether some risk management team at a credit card company thinks it might make them look bad. Okay, so after all that, the corporate overreach, the dehumanization, the doublespeak, I think we all need a palate cleanser, something to remind us why we fell in love with technology in the first place. And boy, do I have the perfect story for you. Story 4, the wooden pixel display. All right, so you know how we're always chasing faster refresh rates, more pixels, better response times? Well, our next story completely flips that on its head. Show HN, I spent 6 years building a ridiculous wooden pixel display. And when they say ridiculous, they really mean it.
This maker built something called the kilopixel, and it's basically the world's most patient display. We're talking 1,000 wooden pixels. That's a 40 by 25 grid. And here's the kicker. It changes 1 pixel at a time 10 times per minute. Just to put that in perspective, your phone screen probably has millions of pixels refreshing 60 or 120 times every second. This thing, 1 pixel every 6 seconds. And the community absolutely loves it. Over 1,100 points on Hacker News, which, for a project that's deliberately inefficient, that's saying something. The creator spent 6 years on this. 6 years! Learning CNC fabrication, 3D modeling, working with stepper motors, building custom G-code generators. It's this beautiful intersection of old-school mechanical engineering and modern web tech. Because, get this, there's a web interface at kilopix.com where anyone in the world can draw on it. What really struck me reading through the comments is how this project kind of serves as this philosophical statement about maker culture. The creator was inspired by Danny Rosen's unconventional mirrors. If you haven't seen those, look them up, they're incredible. And this e-ink movie player that ran at 24 frames per hour, not per second, per hour. There's something almost meditative about building technology that forces you to slow down. The technical details are genuinely impressive, too. Each pixel is a physical wooden block that gets mechanically flipped, one at a time. The whole thing runs on custom controllers, stepper motors, and the creator had to figure out how to generate G-code to control all of this. It's like building a CNC machine that's purposefully terrible at its job, but in the most elegant way possible. Now, what I found fascinating in the discussion thread is this tension between two camps. You've got people who completely get it. They're celebrating the absurdity, the craftsmanship, the fact that someone spent 6 years on something wonderfully impractical. One commenter put it perfectly. It's about doing something just for the love of doing it. But then, you've also got the optimizer crowd who literally cannot help themselves. They're suggesting parallel pixel updates, magnetic mechanisms, thermal paper alternatives. One person, just Gnosis, even went and built their own version in 5 minutes using spray-painted magnetic spheres, which is, that's peak Hacker News right there. Missing the point while simultaneously proving the point. Because, yeah, you could build something faster, but that's not what this is about.
The creator actually addresses this brilliantly. They know it's inefficient. That's the entire point. In an era where we're obsessed with optimization, with shipping MVPs as fast as possible, with measuring everything in milliseconds, here's someone who spent half a decade building something that takes 6 seconds to flip a single wooden block. It's anti-optimization as an art form. And honestly, I think we need more of this. The comments are full of people sharing their own ridiculous projects. Mechanical displays, absurdly slow visualizations, things built purely for the joy of building them. There's real value in these long-term passion projects that teach you a dozen different skills along the way. The creator learned web development, physical fabrication, 3D printing, electronics. That's a whole engineering education wrapped up in one beautifully pointless wooden box. What really gets me is the collaborative aspect. Anyone can go to the website and draw on this thing, and your pixels will, eventually, slowly, painfully slowly, appear on this physical display somewhere in the world. It's like the world's most inefficient shared canvas. There's something poetic about people from around the globe queuing up their pixel changes, waiting for this mechanical contraption to slowly, methodically work through them one by one. You know what this reminds me of? Those YouTube channels where someone plays Doom on increasingly ridiculous things, like, can you play Doom on a pregnancy test? Sure, technically. Should you? That's not the question. The question is, what do you learn along the way? And sometimes, the 6-year journey of building something completely impractical teaches you more than shipping 100 practical projects ever could. And that's where we'll wrap up today's episode. What a journey, right? From the 30 stories that appeared on Hacker News today, these 4 really captured something essential about where we are in tech right now. We've got Perplexity and Cloudflare fighting over the future of web scraping, while the community debates whether robots.txt is sacred law or outdated convention. We've got job seekers literally choosing unemployment over talking to AI interviewers, drawing a line in the sand about human dignity. We've got Mastercard playing word games while wielding unprecedented power over what legal content can exist online. And then, in the middle of all this corporate dysfunction and dehumanization, we've got someone who spent 6 years building a wooden pixel display that changes 1 pixel every 6 seconds. Just because they could. Just because they wanted to learn. Just because sometimes the journey matters more than the destination. Maybe that's the lesson for today. In a world of AI interviews and corporate doublespeak and optimization at all costs, maybe what we need more of is people building ridiculous wooden boxes that flip pixels really, really slowly. Maybe we need more humans insisting on talking to other humans. Maybe we need to remember why we got into this field in the first place. Not to optimize everything into oblivion, but to build cool stuff, learn new things, and occasionally, just occasionally, make something wonderfully, beautifully pointless. Thanks for joining me for this August 4th, 2025 edition of the Hacker News Daily podcast. If you want to dive deeper into any of these stories, check out the links in the show notes. And remember, in a world that's constantly trying to optimize the humanity out of everything, sometimes the most radical thing you can do is spend 6 years building something ridiculous. Until tomorrow, keep questioning, keep building, and keep that human element alive in everything you do. This has been your Hacker News Daily. Take care.